This epithelium is referred to as pseudostratified columnar epithelium. That's a mouthful, but it's not so complicated if you think about it. It's, first of all, mostly found in the trachea. That's where you'll see it on most of our slides, but it's also found throughout the upper respiratory linings. It's also found in the eustachian tube, so you'll see it on the cochlea slide, and it's also in the epididymis and the vas deferens, so you'll come across it in the male reproductive system as well. It's usually ciliated, but don't use that as your main determinant. In some places it's not, so if you see cilia, fine, but don't just focus on that. What you should look at is the overall structure. The first thing to keep in mind there is that this is actually a simple epithelium, meaning that it is a single layer of cells, only one layer with every cell connected to the basement membrane. But not all of the cells reach the lumen. That's the trick here. We call it pseudostratified because pseudo means phony. In other words, it isn't really stratified. It's going to try to trick you into thinking it is. So the tissue is simple, but it appears stratified. That's because under the light microscope, the thing that you can really only see in one of these tissues is the nucleus of each cell. You're going to use that nucleus ordinarily as a kind of a marker for where a cell is located. This is where you might get tricked, because pseudostratified epithelium has some cells that are tall and some cells that are short mixed together. Some of the nuclei from the tall cells will be located up high, other nuclei from the short cells will be located down lower. This can give your eye the false impression that you're looking at layers of cells stacked on top of each other, but they're actually side by side, tall cells and short cells intermingled. Most of the tall cells in this pseudostratified epithelium are ciliated, so if it's a ciliated version, that's where you'll see them, at the lumen of the tall cells. Some of the cells that reach the lumen are not ciliated. Those are going to be big, roundish cells that are going to be fairly transparent looking. They're non-ciliated goblet cells. You may see them, you may not. If you do see them, it's a pretty good indicator that you could be looking at pseudostratified epithelium. Those short cells are the basal cells. They're non-ciliated because they don't reach the lumen. They kind of hold back towards the base, ready to multiply if there's any damage to the tissue.